All right, and so we shall continue today with speaking of joyous effort and the four powers which are conducive with joyous effort. But first thing first, I want to thank everyone that is here today, and definitely I want to thank Dundruk for um, putting up this amazing program, and also I don't know Dundruk if you're going mental from all the various activities of Tupten Nobling, but I would. It seems like a mammoth operation, so thank you very much for putting all these things up. And so to begin with, let's correct the motivation with breathage and bodhicitta. And as I said a few times before, whatever activity we engage in, be it in a meditation session or a discussion with friends in a Dhamma center or listening to teachings or teaching ourselves, if a motivation to begin with is refuge, which means we rely upon the Buddha, we rely upon the Dhamma, we rely upon the Sangha, all those activities become support of our own refuge, and all those activities contribute to our own liberation from samsara. And to add to that, if we generate bodhicitta based on compassion in observing all living beings, also, our actions contribute to the vast accumulation of causes and conditions which are required for attaining the state of Buddha. And so, rather than just being kind of like casual about it, it's good from time to time. That's kind of the very least, or always that's the best, to correct the motivation with refuge and bodhicitta. And so, we're going to do that in conjunction with what we spoke about in our previous session. Um, In the previous session, we spoke about joyous effort, and joyous effort is rejoicing in virtue, being totally enthused. Sorry, not rejoicing in virtue, it's being enthused about virtue. It is being so delighted that we can work in a positive way, contributing cause and conditions for our own creation of the state of Buddhahood for ourselves. So that's what joyous effort means in the context of the sixth perfection. But also, I think that joyous effort, you can say that is also absolutely required for Theravada practitioners, Hinayana practitioners for attaining the respective results. So it is a feature, it is a quality that is common to all Buddhist vehicles. And so we spoke about things which are incongruous with joyous effort. Basically, it's laziness. Laziness is not harmonious with joyous effort. There are different types of laziness. Not all of them we consider laziness from the perspective of English, the English language, or the way that we speak about being lazy in our culture. But in a Buddhist context, laziness is either indolence or procrastination. It is indolence of not assessing our priorities in a correct way. It is called being attracted to activities which are ignoble, which means that we prefer um, activities which bring us short-term happiness and joy. We put all our focus on those activities, and we leave very little time for Dhamma activities or Dhamma practices that are supposed to be bringing long-term happiness and satisfaction. So that's the second type of laziness that I spoke of. And the third one is laziness of belittling ourselves, being discouraged, thinking that either we don't have what it takes in order to attain liberation, in order to become Buddha, or that the task itself is too daunting, or that all along we will have to remain in samsara and cyclic existence, and the pain and the suffering that we will endure will be far too much. So we spoke about those types of lazinesses and also the antidotes that we can employ in order to reduce a sense of laziness. Then, in order to overcome laziness, we develop the four forces. And in the previous session, we started with the power of esteem, the power of confidence, sorry, the power of certainty, the power of being absolutely resolute that this is what we want to do. And in order to develop the power of esteem, the power of interest, being resolute, this is what we want to do, we first off think of karma. And this is where I wanted to start our reflection uh, for today. And so, in general, we say that virtuous actions bring about happiness, and non-virtuous actions bring about bring behaving well, improve the situation here and hereafter. Behaving in a negative way, we might get some short-term happiness or such satisfaction with something that we might have obtained in ways which are not right, but the long-term effect will be detrimental here and hereafter. And so we contemplate in general karma, but it's not enough just to contemplate that. Over and over again, when we do it, we have to become more certain and more convinced in the working of karma, which is difficult. I think that it's difficult for everyone because um, although I think that our Tibetan Buddhist teachers say that um, karma is quite a scientific, no, they don't, maybe not everyone said that it's a scientific topic, but they say that if you look at the external working of causality, how in the external world, cause and conditions come together to produce a certain result, also you can then shift your focus internally and work out how cause and conditions produce their own results internally. But then when we speak about karma, and also karma continuing from one life to the next, from this birth to the next rebirth, and to the one after, for myriad rebirths, it becomes more difficult to really fathom karma, particularly when we suffer and we have no idea what the cause and conditions are contributing to our suffering. And also when you can say just as well, when something really unexpected, wonderful, amazing is happening to us, we don't see the cause and conditions for that sometimes. And we think that things maybe work in a random way. So it's difficult to develop like this really deep, heartfelt conviction in the working of karma. But we can be honest about it, right? So we can be honest that maybe we don't have that deep kind of heart, full-hearted feeling about karma. Or maybe we do. That's wonderful. If you have that, that's wonderful. But if we don't, we continue to work on thinking of karma, developing bit by bit more trust in the working of karma, and even more particularly in the working of the six perfections, the perfection of generosity and ethics and patience and joyous effort and concentration and the perfection of wisdom. They have the power to bring us from a current state, to lead us from a current state to the state of Buddha. And so, in order to be able to do so, in order to be able to develop the power of steadfastness, to develop a mind that is totally resolute, that this is what I want to do. I want to avoid negative actions. I want to do positive things. I want to practice the six perfections. We rely upon the Buddha, we rely upon the Dharma, and we rely upon the Sangha. And we rely upon them in thinking that the Buddha is our teacher. The Buddha taught us how to develop joyous effort. Not only how to develop joyous effort, the Buddha taught us the six perfections. The Buddha taught us also the Hinayana vehicle. All the things that the Buddha taught for us are for developing our mind. There's nothing that the Buddha taught which is not about subduing the mind. But we also rely upon the Dharma, not just the teachings that the Buddha gave, but thinking that the Buddha gave those teachings out of his enlightened mind. And the enlightened mind of the Buddha is a full development of all positive qualities, consummate true paths, consummate true cessations, in which not even a trace of negativities, obscurations, any limitations, all of them were completely removed. So from this enlightened mind, the Buddha taught us what we need to do, and also knowing all of our dispositions. There is a great text that is called Abhisamma Alankara, the ornament for clear realization. And it is said that omniscience is the way, is the means through which the Buddha turns the wheel of Dharma, because the Buddha knows the dispositions of all of us. And through that, it can turn the wheel of Dharma for various beings of various dispositions. And we also rely upon the Sangha. Not only, you can say, a small Sangha here, or uh, Sangha members, monks and nuns, but we can also think of the Sangha members throughout the generations, from the time of the Buddha to the present day. Myriad beings that have practiced the teachings, developed realizations, and brought the Dharma to us at this present day, also in mammoth operation. And we can also think, of course, of our teachers still teaching us, those who are involved with Thupten Nobeling, those who are involved with other traditions, great masters of this current age, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Ling Rinpoche, Situ Rinpoche, all other great teachers. We can also think about them. But we go for refuge in order to develop resultant refuges, which means that in order to develop our own state of Buddhahood, in order for ourselves to become Buddha, in order to embody the Dharma, in order to embody the Sangha, in order to be examples for others. And so with that sense of reliance, we're going to then recite the verse for going for refuge and developing bodhicitta. There it is. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the teachings, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dhamma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dhamma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. All right. So, how are we doing so far? By the way, I wanted to thank Karen for reminding me of the time. Google Calendar still tells me that we are starting in 1 hour. So Karen said today. Thank you very much. And so um, in the previous session, we spoke of, I started to speak of the four forces, the four powers, which are conducive for joyous effort. And we also looked at a couple of verses from Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life. Maybe just let's read a couple of them. For example, verse 33, if I can, this one, sorry. Where are you? Where are you? There it is. So Shantideva sets up this great conviction for developing the power of steadfastness. For developing the power of conviction, of interest. He said, I shall destroy the boundless misdeeds of others and myself. At that time, if each of these misdeeds will be exhausted in an ocean of eons, so I'm thinking that even if it takes me eons to exhaust even a single misdeed for the sake of others and for the sake of myself, I shall do it. And he continues in verse 35 and he says, I shall accomplish many excellent qualities for others and myself, and I will acquaint myself with each of these qualities through an ocean of eons. So setting this long-term perspective is important. I think it's important, particularly for us who start think that many of us start from a background, not a Buddhist background. I certainly not start off as being Buddhist. Um, and so we have the tendency to focus on this life and to expect great results in this life. But here Shantideva said our goal is not this life. Our orientation, our perspective is thinking that it's going to take me eons. It's going to take me an ocean of eons. And even if it takes an ocean of eons to develop one single quality, I shall continue to do that. As the Guru Puja says, even if I have to stay in the hells of Avicii for one sentient being alone, for eons over eons of eons, I shall continue to do that without feeling disheartened, without losing hope. That's paraphrasing what Guru Puja says. And so setting this long-term perspective is important. And if I may share with you one kind of personal thing, um, I grew up in Israel, and Israel at the moment, the situation in Israel at the moment is like totally chaotic and totally um, depressing. All of my friends are distressed and they live in a sense of despair. And particularly when I have conversations with my Dharma friends, everyone is trying to come up with solutions. Kind of, and my attitude to that is thinking that, you know, short-term solutions don't work. Or maybe they do work, but I can't see any short-term solution. So the kind of attitude that I think that people need to have is a long-term attitude. We are investing in future generations rather than thinking that we'd be able to create peace or bring a long-term solution next year, 5 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. A long-term approach, I think, is trying to bring solution for future generations. And solution for future generations needs to start with developing the heart, developing the mind, setting an example for others. Adding more drops into vast oceans. We alone, just as kind of I, as a single living being, cannot change the situation. But if I think of how do I provide a mentality of, let's say, a wise elder, um, thinking of how do we create long-term process of developing our mind in our society, in our community, a change can occur in the future. So that's my kind of thinking about the whole Israeli situation. But I think that it also coincides with thinking of Dharma, or thinking of what Shantideva says here. The power of conviction, of the power of interest, is thinking about a long-term process, not expecting everything to occur in this life, but thinking that I should do it for an ocean of eons. And also, adding maybe another point that just came up in my mind in the years that I've been working with one of our teachers at Chenrezig Institute, Geshe-la Jamyang, he said that our approach to study should be such that we are studying for the next generation of students. Then we're not just studying for ourselves in order to know how to deal with our mind, but we're also studying in order to make the Dharma available to others in future generations. So if we think of, for example, how do we want Dharma to exist in the US in 100 years from now, in 50 years from now, in 20 years from now? If we do our best to study, but not only to study, if we do our best to practice and also to embody those teachings, we're opening the way for many others to do it in the future. And so setting this long-term perspective is important in the context of the power of steadfastness. That's the first power. Are we ready to move to the next one? The power of steadfastness, the power of stability. Yeah. All right. And so with the power of steadfastness, We need to develop an attitude in which we become consistent in our study and practice. So taking up certain practices or taking up certain projects, bringing them to completion without turning back. And this is important because I've seen in myself, but also with others, that we sometimes become a little bit haphazard about our approach to practice. We take up something and we get tired. We take up something with a great deal of enthusiasm, and halfway through, it's no longer exciting. We take up a particular thing and we become a little bit sick or ill. So we set it aside and we never go back to doing it again. Then we pick up something else. All along, we're creating habits. We're placing imprints on our mind for taking up things without bringing them to completion. Some of us have a greater tendency to do it. Some of us have a lesser tendency to do it. If we have a greater tendency of taking up practices, projects, topics to study, and so forth, but not completing them, it is probably on account of imprints that we have accumulated in the past. So we're already used to it. So let's not increase those imprints. If we increase those imprints, if they gain more strength in future lifetimes, again, we will take up practices, topics that we study, other projects will not bring them to completion, and thereby we will weaken everything all the branches, all the other practices that we take along or that we bring along the practice of the Dharma. But also, together with that, there is another danger of breaking our vows and pledges or vows and commitments. You've committed yourself to do something, and halfway through, you become tired, you become exhausted, or maybe the importance of this practice is no longer appealing. You leave it undone, you leave it halfway through. And then when we do that, we accumulate negativity, which result in suffering in the future. And so developing the power of steadfastness is certainly about developing this momentum in our practice in which we will not go back on the things that we have avoided, that we have promised to do. In order to do that, we need to have a good understanding of the Lamrim, the sense of the path, but also we need to have a good understanding of where are we, which level, which practice we should focus at the moment. I remember that in the early days of my involvement with Buddhism, I encountered Buddhism in India, and then I did some study in Israel, and then I started going to India again and again every year for studying in the Tibetan Library of Works and Archives and studying with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And so all the topics that I studied were pretty much all over the place. There was no order, there was no sequence. Basically, I took courses and classes of whatever was available. And I couldn't really work out what I should be doing personally as a kind of beginner Buddhist practitioner. So I took one course at the Tibetan Library with Geshe Sonam Rinchen that passed away already, but now I taught a course on calm abiding. It sounded amazing. I didn't understand a whole lot, but it sounded like something that, first of all, is practical. I can do it. And then I started kind of following some of the practices. And then I went to another course, which also looked really amazing. So I abandoned this calm abiding endeavor and went off and to do something else. And then I continued doing that because I had no background, no foundation, no basis, no solid basis for being able to, first of all, know where I'm going with my Buddhist practice, but also what should I be focusing on in my current level. So this is something that we cannot rush. We need to, first of all, be kind to ourselves in allowing ourselves to develop a knowledge base. And the FEMT, Thupten Nobeling, offer a great framework for developing this long-term approach to developing knowledge. So when we develop knowledge, and it takes, I think, maybe a few years, maybe even a couple of decades to really become very familiar with all the steps of the path, but also knowing where we're situated in the steps of the path. So sometimes when I look at myself, I'm a Buddhist monk. I've been involved with Buddhism for 27 years, 28 years, which is not a lot of time, particularly when you consider teachers and practitioners from the Tibetan Buddhist traditions. They have centuries, 1,000 years of advantage over people like myself. So I'm still a beginner level practitioner. And even though I've studied some stuff and I'm a monk, sometimes I think that have I really gone for refuge correctly? Do I have a correct appreciation of a precious human rebirth with freedoms and richnesses? Am I really taking advantage of my life? Do I really have I really thought enough of death and impermanence? Am I totally bent on emerging from samsara, living samsara? So it helps me to kind of really, those questions helps me to sort out what do I need to focus in my current stage, current level. And it's not to say that I cannot do other practices. The Tibetan Buddhist tradition is also pretty much a Vajrayana tradition, a tantric tradition. And so taught, we are taught the Lamrim and how important it is to make sure that we don't jump ahead, but we're also given empowerment, tantric empowerment. And so often what happens is that we rush into taking empowerments, but also we take too many empowerments that come with too many commitments. And when we have too many commitments, which means that we need to recite different things every day, sometimes it turns into a talk fest in a sense that we say many words, but not much of meditation because we have to make sure that we complete all of our commitments daily. So we might have the 6 session Guru Yoga and the Yamataka practice and the Vajrayogini practice and Goya Samaja practice and this and that. And then we also have to do something in the evening. I have friends who have accumulated 4 hours of recitations every day. And some of them are really consistent with that. But with my lifestyle, I know that it will not work. For me, it doesn't work. And so I'm bringing it back to the power of steadfastness. We really need to know where we're at and also what we're capable of. So assessing well our capabilities and only taking up what we are capable of doing. And if there's something that we are incapable of doing, without belittling ourselves, right? Without falling prey to the sense of to a lack of confidence in ourselves, to thinking that someone like me cannot do that. If we have like a really accurate and honest assessment of ourselves through building up our knowledge base, we can decide what we're capable of and what we're not capable of. And if there are things which we are not capable of at the moment, we need to put it aside and focus on what we can do and bring it to completion. And so there are different things that I thought of in the last couple of days related to taking up things that we can do and leaving aside for the time being things that we cannot do or that I cannot do. Going back, for example, to taking up the practice of shamatha, calm abiding. It's a wonderful practice. I try to do it every day as part of my meditation practice. But really, to attain shamatha, to attain calm abiding with all the full range of marks and wonderful attributes and qualities that arise from calm abiding, I need to go into a retreat. I need to focus, to be really focused, concentrated on the attainment of calm abiding. And sometimes in scripture, it is said that if you have all the prerequisites, then it is something that is attainable within 6 months. It is something that is attainable within maybe 3 months. So I think that normally they say 6 months. So really assessing my capabilities, I think that even if I went into a strict retreat now, I will not attain it. I will not attain it because I haven't got the prerequisites for developing calm abiding. I do have some of them, but in a reduced fashion. Lama Tsongkhapa in his Lamrim Chenmo described a few of the prerequisites for attending calm abiding. He said that apart from relying upon a place that is suitable, that is workable for developing calm abiding, we also need to make sure that our ethical discipline is pure. We need to make sure that we have um, lesser desire and that we are more satisfied. And so I still have, I think, quite a long way to go with reducing attachment and becoming more satisfied with what I have. And when I speak about attachment, I'm a monk, so I'm not speaking about sexual desire. I speak of attachment to material things, to object of the senses. Now, whenever I go into retreat, I prepare a lot of food. It becomes almost like an obsession, thinking that I need to have enough coffee for my retreat. I need to have enough chocolates for my retreats. I need to kind of make sure that I stash this and that. It becomes like this kind of constant thinking of what I need to have in my retreat so that everything will become comfortable and enjoyable. And it's a little bit pathetic. I think my mind is a little bit pathetic, but really, when I go back to thinking of what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, having lesser desire and being more satisfied with what you have in your retreat, I still have a lot of work to do. It does not mean to say that there is no meaning to do karma bathing retreats. It doesn't mean that at all. But I need to have honest assessment of my capabilities and to think that if I don't have all the prerequisites, I need to build them up. And to building up all the prerequisites also might involve with taking up Kyoto retreats and karma bathing, in which I do hone my capabilities, I develop them, but with better expectations. And if I had better expectations, most honest expectations, I would also protect myself from disappointment. If I protect myself from disappointment, I would also make sure that I do not leave those practices half done. When I have, over the years, I've met so many people that have left either the Dharma or certain practices or certain commitments that they had because they had, first of all, short-term expectations, but also overinflated expectations of themselves. So let's avoid that. And when I say let's avoid that, it's like let's just make sure that we take it gradually. It's a long term, as I said before, it's a long term process. Not only this lifetime's project, but also we want to incorporate into that next life and the one after that and the one after that over so many lifetimes of improvements. And so when we then think of the power of steadfastness, the power of stability, um, we think that we should take only what we're capable of and then for the time being what we cannot do. And once we take it out, we should continue till the completion of the task without turning back. This is what Lama Tsongkhapa says in his Lamrim Chen. And so, as I said, it also requires us to understand the Lamrim, or maybe more concisely, the three principal aspects of the path. So, we don't take, as I said, we do not take too many commitments. That's advisable. Also, maybe we shouldn't imitate some of our teachers. When I say we shouldn't imitate, we shouldn't think that we're necessarily at their level. Like, for example, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. When he was alive, came across over the years, people that try to emulate what Lama Zopa Rinpoche was capable of, not sleeping at night, practicing all day and all night, being nice to people all day and all night. It's a massive endeavor. So it's good to try to emulate that. But again, being honest about our capacity. I'm not Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I'm incapable of doing that. And therefore, I should also take some rest from time to time. And so when we speak about the power of steadfastness, the second power, and Shantideva in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life says that we should become proud. We should meditate on pride. But then the way that he explains pride is different to our usual understanding of what pride is. So when we become proud, we become aloof. We think that we are better than others. Here, when Shantideva speaks of pride, he speaks about self-confidence. So to develop the power of stability, we should develop self-confidence. So what is the difference between self-confidence and being proud? Well, I think that being proud is a state of mind in which our orientation is comparing ourselves to others, thinking that we are better than others. So it's more of an outward going orientation. Whereas when we develop self-confidence, we look inwardly, not externally, but inwardly, understand our qualities, understand our strength, and we think that it is within our power to do it. So we can become self-assured, we become self-confident. It does not mean to say that we are proud. Right? So it's okay to be confident. There's nothing wrong with being confident. There's nothing wrong with stepping into the room and being confident that you can do it. It does not mean that we are proud. Right? So we should be, sometimes we try to feign a sense of meekness, and it might also appear as if we are not really confident of ourselves. Right? Self-confidence is good. And so Shantideva speaks about this pride, which is also understood to be self-confidence, but it does it in three different ways. He said, first of all, we should develop pride in our actions, in our activities, which means that we should have self-confidence in whatever we do. And when I say whatever we do, of course, it means that we should do it, we should develop self-confidence in our Dharma practice. And when he does that, maybe I can share some of those verses with you. It says, first of all, verse 49, it says, apply pride to the three actions, which means we develop self-confidence in our actions, pride over afflictions, and pride or self-confidence in our ability. And it begins with saying that thinking, I alone shall do it. This is the pride of actions. And it says, afflicted, powerless beings in this world are unable to accomplish their own welfare. Migrating beings are not like me, therefore I shall do this. If others are doing inferior work, why should I sit around? I do not perform it out of pride. It would be best for me to have no pride. And so Shantideva says, first of all, we're developing the pride or self-confidence in our activities, in our practice. Then we should think, I alone should do it. Just like this verse that I mentioned from the Guru Puja. Even if I have to stay for eons in the fiery hells of Avicii, for the sake of one single sentient being, I shall do it without feeling discouraged. So developing this self-confidence that I will do it, I will not leave it to other people to do it. When Shantideva says that other people are doing inferior work, we can understand it in two ways. We can One way of understanding it would be to think of how we have so many people living in this world. Many of them don't have freedoms and richnesses. They were born as human beings, but it does not mean to say that they have the full range of freedom and richnesses. Some of them are incapable of developing the mind. Some of them are bound by cultural constraints. Some of them have wrong views. For some of them, the power of negative karma is so massive. For us, it's different in the sense that not only we have met the not only we have the full set of freedoms and richnesses, but we have met the Dharma. We have met spiritual teachers. We have a community that supports us, and we also support the community. So in that sense, we can think that our situation is so much better than others. Using the word inferior in English does it a little bit injustice in that we do not become we do not look down upon others, but we can recognize that our situation is better than so many others. So we think this is therefore my task. I shall do it. That's one way of understanding it. But also, other way of understanding it is thinking that um, so many other people are busy with just living from day to day. They go to work. They work in fields. They work in offices. They work in constructions and so forth. And the whole world is surrounded by those activities which focus only on this life. But we, from not in Buddhist perspective, from a Mahayana perspective, we think that my goal is not to make this lifetime only, or to make perfect this lifetime only. My goal is to become Buddha for the sake of so many others. And therefore, this is my task to help others. And even if I need to help them with menial works, with menial jobs, I will do it. So that's the first type of pride that we develop, pride or self-confidence, becoming resolute that I myself will do it and I will do it alone. And then also um, we need to think that not only it is for us to do, but also we have the power to do it. It is within our ability to do it. So it is becoming also self-confidence in thinking that as I said, we have attained precious human rebirth with freedoms and richnesses. We have everything that takes to practice the Dhamma. Internally, we have a wise and smart, intelligent mind. We have faith, but also externally, we have spiritual teachers that are trying to get us to a better position, develop our mind. If you look for a second at what Shantideva says um, in his text, he says, if you look at verse 52, it says, if I'm weak, I shall be harmed even by small downfalls. How do the faint-hearted who have given up exerting themselves find liberation from destitution? By generating pride and exertion, even the great will find it hard to overcome me. Therefore, with a steady mind, I shall overcome the downfalls. If I'm defeated by downfalls, my wish to be victorious over the three realms will become a joke. I will conquer everything, and nothing at all shall conquer me. I, son of the lion like Victor, shall dwell in this pride. And so becoming confident because of our abilities. The one thing that we can also add to the mix is thinking of our own Buddha nature. So all living beings have Buddha nature. All sentient beings have Buddha nature. But particularly us, when we think of ourselves, what we need to do in order to awaken a Buddha nature, in order to nourish a Buddha nature, we have, as I said, we have teachers, we have the Dhamma, we have a precious human rebirth, and we have compassion. We can develop the power of compassion. The deeper meaning of Buddha nature is has to do with our own mind. In that, it has to do with the emptiness of our mind. A mind is without inherent existence. It does not exist inherently, which means that there is no affliction or limitation that is inherently ingrained within our own mind. From time to time, it seems that there's no way that we'd be able to eliminate anger. There's absolutely no way that we'd be able to overcome attachment. They happen again and again. They rise up again and again in our mind to the point in which we lose heart. We lose faith that it is possible to eliminate anger. But really, when we start to look at our mind and try to see where the anger, hatred, hostility, attachment, pride, and so forth are they ingrained within the nature of the mind, we can see quite clearly that they are not. Not only they are not ingrained within the nature of the mind, also our mind is such that it can be developed limitlessly. If given the right cause and conditions, there's no limit to how far we can go with our mental training. Physically, we are totally limited. So my absolutely favorite sport is swimming. I don't care about any other sport, no, all other sports. I don't care about football, basketball, and so forth, but I love swimming. And so I watch the Olympics and I watch the World Championships. And when someone breaks a world record, to do it with like milliseconds. And it takes so much time and effort and training. Our body is limited. No, we will not be able to swim 100-meter freestyle in a second. It is not possible to do it with a human body. Our body is limited, but our mind is not limited. And so becoming certain about our ability is also becoming certain about our Buddha nature, our ability to eliminate our obscurations, and our ability to develop good qualities because the mind is unlimited. That's one thing. Um, and as I said, also we should also have a correct assessment of our current ability. Now, even though we have an ability of developing unlimited qualities, we might be still constrained by a current situation. There is a fine balance here, assessing our ability. And then we also need to have pride over the affliction. That's the third type of pride that we should develop, in thinking that I shall overcome my afflictions. And here, one of the commentaries that I read gives a really useful advice. When we say that I shall overcome the afflictions, I will be victorious over my afflictions, I will not let my afflictions ruin me. First of all, we need to understand our mind. We need to become more acquainted with the mind. We need to become more acquainted with afflictive emotions, in that we need to know what they are. We need to be able to recognize the different manifestations of afflictions in our mind when they rise and when they become very powerful. We need to have mindfulness and alertness. Actually, when we look at the different ways in which afflictions arise, they arise because we don't know what the meaning of affliction is. We don't know that for example, anger and attachment are bad for us. We're not aware of our mind. We don't develop mindfulness and introspection. We remain close to objects that steer our afflictions. And we also pay, sorry, improper mental attention to objects around us. We exaggerate the qualities or we exaggerate the faults, and thereby afflictions arise. And so one of the texts that I read said that advanced level practitioners not only can um, have good control over the mind, but they can even take up afflictions, bring them onto the path in order to destroy the afflictions. It's called taking afflictions as a path. Advanced level practitioners can do it. Medium level practitioners can withstand the afflictions. Not only withstand the afflictions, they can apply antidotes to those afflictions. I think that in some situations, I can do that. I can apply antidotes to some of my afflictions. I can do it in an effective way. But also, it is said that beginner level practitioners should also practice a sense of restraint, avoid objects that stir up afflictions. I do that sometimes. This is also, I could say that in some areas of my life, this is what I need to do. I'm not advanced, I'm quite a beginner. I need to avoid some objects that give rise to my afflictions, that trigger my afflictions. And so developing pride over the afflictions. Let's see what Shantideva says in relation to that. I think that um, it was in verses 60 to 62. Let's try to find them. It says, when amidst a class of afflictions, I should be persistent with them in 1,000 ways. Like a lion among foxes and the like, I will not be injured by the host of afflictions. Just as men will guard their eyes in the occurrence of great danger, likewise, I should not come under the power of the afflictions, even when danger occurs. And then it says it would be better for me to be burned, to be killed, or to have my head cut off, rather than bowing down to the enemy of afflictions. What do you think? Easy? Is it not to bow our head down to the afflictions? But it is extremely difficult. Have you got any questions, by the way, before we look at the next power? All right. And so then the next power is the power of joy. And so the power of joy is about really enjoying what we do, enjoying a practice, enjoying a study. It shouldn't be like thinking that I have to do it. I don't want to do it now, but as a Buddhist practitioner, this is what I want. This is what I need to do. It doesn't have to be kind of this painful, tormented, tortured approach to practice. I said that no when I'm saying that I'm reminded that um, I think it was maybe 20 odd years ago. I heard about doing preliminary practices, and I saw people doing 100,000 prostrations at Budgaya, and I saw, I've spoken with people that have done the preliminary, so this is what I wanted to do. And so I approached my teacher and I asked him to teach me how to do the preliminaries, and the first set was doing 100,000 prostrations. Um, so I did it in the Kamakage tradition. So you do 100,000 prostrations, and then the penalty rate is adding 10% more because we have faults of omissions, we have faults of not doing it right, we become unconcentrated, we become this and that and this and that. In short, 110,000 prostrations. And so I approached that with a great sense of enthusiasm. And after the first day, I thought myself, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And so it took me quite a few months of like really, it was really painful. And my body was aching, my mind was aching, and I was doing it as though it was at the beginning of my work as a new translator for Chinrezig Institute. And so I was constantly stressed. I had to do a lot of studies every day, reading texts and memorizing words and going to teachings and not understanding what the geshe says, and then doing lots of prostrations every day. Can't say that I really enjoyed it. I can't say that I did it with a great sense of joy. It wasn't that what was waking up in the morning and thinking that great, another set of 500 prostrations is a wedding for me just around the corner. No, so it wasn't like that at all. And so that's some things which are difficult. Or for example, when someone is harming you, insulting you, your mind is already injured, you're in pain. It's difficult to take joy in the practice of patience, isn't it? But overall, I think that when Shantideva explains here in his text, The Guide to Bodhisattva of Life, the power of joy, I think that he speaks about overall our attitude to being Buddhists and into our Buddhist practice. It's not doing penance. It's not about bearing a cross. It's about really feeling that we're doing the right thing. Not only feeling that we're doing the right thing, it is still based on karma, in trusting that if we do well, if we do good, we will experience happiness. If we practice the deeds of bodhisattvas, if we practice the Mahayana, we will get further and further along the way. We will develop our abilities to be better practitioners, a greater sense of endurance, and definitely better able to be of benefit to others. So, um, Shantideva says, when he speaks about the power of joy, he says that we should do it like a child that is totally engrossed in play. So, when a child is completely engrossed in playing with something in a play, they're not doing it because they in thinking that I shall produce a result. They don't think of the outcome of the game. They're just playing. And they're playing with a great sense of joy, skipping, running, playing with trucks or what have you. They're not thinking of the outcome. Also, a similar attitude should be taken into our practice. And of course, our outcome should be the state of Buddhahood. But all along, we should be thinking that I'm doing a positive thing. I'm doing the right thing. I'm cultivating virtue. And this is what I set to do. And also, together with that, we can also think that I'm not focusing on short-term benefits. I'm not focused on short-term happiness and well-being. This is not my goal. My goal is to bring long-term happiness not only to myself but also to others. And so I'm not going to become complacent. I'm not going to become satiated with my practice. The type of attitude that we should bring into the development of the power of joy is being completely insatiable with whatever we practice. And again, when I say whatever we practice, it seems that we take practice to be limited to a meditation cushion. It's not limited only to a meditation cushion. No, we might wake up in the morning, we correct the motivation. We might do it through in sitting um, in a certain place or location, doing a morning practice, blah, 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 blah. But it might also be that we have limited time in the morning. We just sit in our bed. We have maybe a few minutes to correct the motivation, 2 minutes to go for refuge. We have days like that. I have days like that in which I have to rush. But no, we go out with a certain, I go out with a certain intention to do the best that I can in this coming day. And during the day, I encounter certain challenges and I deal with them as much as I can with the tools that I acquired as a Buddhist practitioner. And there's a kind of joy and pleasure when I'm able to uphold my standards, when I'm able to, for example, to be generous, to keep the boundaries of my ethical discipline, when I'm able to be patient, when I'm not responding in that kind of in being livid, or when I'm not responding in kind of lashing out, when I can just withhold and think that it doesn't matter. I can deal with that. I can feel a sense of satisfaction with my practice. And it becomes, I can say that I want to do better. I want to do more. I want to become better in it. In that sense, it becomes insatiable. And particularly, I think that when we look up to our teachers, sometimes it's difficult when we assess ourselves, it's difficult to be inspired. We can be inspired by our peers, at least some of them, with our Dharma friends. We can definitely become inspired by our teachers. And so I think that Geshe Sherab is an incredible person, very, very humble, very loving, very helpful. So and I don't think that he's satiated with what he's doing. Definitely, if I think of kind of the top standard, is honestly Dan Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. They're the top of being insatiable, not stopping. And so if we look at just a little bit at what Shantideva is saying in his Guide to Bodhisattva or Way of Life with respect to um, being insatiable, um, shared with us as just like those who desire the pleasurable result of play. As I said, like a small child that is just enjoying play. Also, this bodhisattva adheres to whatever task he may do without thinking of the result, but just enjoying helping others, enjoying being generous, enjoying being um, ethical, enjoying being patient, enjoying developing concentration, enjoying developing wisdom, enjoying the four ways of amassing or gathering disciples. So Shantideva said he's not satiated by it. It makes him happy. And so, of course, there are days that in which we feel quite shitty. It's pretty difficult to kind of to feel insatiable when people rub us in the wrong way, isn't it? And so it's not going to happen every day, all the time. But I think that the message that Shantideva puts forward here is that let's not become complacent with our practice. We should always aspire to do more and be happy to do it. And so he continues in saying, although people work in order to be happy, it is uncertain whether or not they will be happy. But how can those who work itself is happiness find happiness without doing the work? And so, although people work in order to be happy, it is uncertain whether or not they will be happy. So this connects quite well to the idea of merit. One of the people that I worked with before, Geshe Jamming, used to say that, and when he explained the whole idea of merit, he said that merit basically has a, is playing a great role in assuring that whatever we undertake will yield a certain result. So some people put a lot of effort into their business, into whatever they do. They seem to be doing the right thing, but without success. And some other people are quite easygoing about what they try to do. And bang, just like that, they have great success. If you have merit, you have great success with little effort. If you don't have, if you have lesser merit, I mean, all of us have merit, but it might be that we have lesser merit. We might have to put a lot of effort into whatever we do, and yet success will not find success. And so here, Shantideva says people put a lot of work um, into a certain thing without being sure whether it will yield the result. But we here are looking at a different thing. Here we're looking at our own Dharma practice, aiming at a state of liberation, aiming at becoming Buddha. Bodhisattvas, it says, Bodhisattvas practice, their job is to benefit others. Their job is to attain enlightenment. This is the job description to attain enlightenment. And so the work itself is joy. The work itself is happiness. And so, unlike other things, unlike worldly activities, which are uncertain whether they're going to bring joy or not bring joy, doing a Dharma practice, working towards enlightenment, Bodhisattvas do it and we do it in securing happiness and well being. So we become insatiable in relation to that. So he continues in saying, um, if I'm not satisfied by desirable objects, which are like honey smeared upon a razor's blade or razor's edge, then why am I satiated by merit which is ripening and pacification in happiness? It is often said as samsaric pleasure is like licking honey from a razor blade. Have you heard that before? Have you heard that saying before that licking samsaric pleasures is like licking honey off a razor blade? Actually, kind of sounds quite painful when you think about it. And so we become attached to samsaric pleasures, and then we find ourselves again and again in the cycle of samsara. When we look at the 12 links of dependent arising, links 7, 8, craving and grasping, link, sorry, it's 8 and 9, craving and grasping. These are attachment, basically. They activate a karmic imprint in the link of becoming, which then sends us or directs us to another birth in samsara, birth, and then aging and death. So attachment fuels cyclic existence. But on top of that, what about all the activities, all the negative actions that we do on account of attachment? Because attachment tells us the story. This is good for us. It will brings us happiness. Even if we behave in a way that is not ethical, that is immoral, it would make us happy. Yeah. I sometimes believe the stories, believe in the stories that my attachment tells me. So it creates it creates suffering, sorry, in samsara. So, and the devil says here, if I'm not satiated by desirable objects, which are like honey smeared upon a razor's edge, then why am I satiated by merit, which is ripening in pacification in happiness? I said, this is actually sounds quite interesting, at least when I look at myself, because with attachment to objects of desire, to beautiful sights and beautiful smells and definitely beautiful taste with food and tactile objects and watching movies and so on and so forth. I'm insatiable. With practicing the Dharma, there are days in which I think that, yeah, I've had half an hour of practice. I feel great about it. It's enough. Totally satiated. I'm over the top. If I do an hour meditation a day, I feel like, wow, I've cracked the system. 2 hours of meditation, wow, amazing, amazing, amazing. And so when the Deva says here, we become so satiated by a Dhamma practice and insatiable about objects of the senses, right? Completely back to front, upside down, inside out, doing the wrong thing. And so it continues in saying, thus, in order to complete this task, I shall engage in it just as an elephant tormented by midday, enters into a lake. It's a beautiful analogy. Think of um, an elephant, either in Thailand or in Africa, hot, scorching day, leaping into a pond of mud or water in order to kind of alleviate this suffering of heat. So similarly, when we think of plunging out of our own choice into the pool of samsara, in order to alleviate the suffering of ourselves and the suffering of sentient beings, of course, this is the type of attitude that we bring into our practice, becoming insatiable with respect to doing the right thing, practicing the Bodhisattva way. So any questions before we continue on to the next hour? Do you feel satiated or insatiable? Do you feel like I had enough? I'm totally satiated? All right. And so then the last part out of the four is my my most favorite power is the power of suspension. Or it's called the power of suspension, the power of relinquishment, or in short, the power of taking a rest. I'm good at the power of taking rest. And Shantideva says in his Gata Bodhisattva way of life, he says, when my strength is related to degeneration, I should leave whatever I'm doing in order to return to it. If something is finished well, I should put it aside with a wish for more and more later. So there are two things in verse 67 related to the power of relinquishment or the power of taking a rest. So we're studying practice, but we need to know when to take a break. If we overdo it, if we burn out, we will harm ourselves physically and mentally, and also we will be disinclined to pick it up again in the future. So in relation to that, just maybe one thing that is related to the development of shamatha, calm abiding. An advice that is given for those who embark on the development of shamatha, calm abiding, is to start with short sessions and to do maybe a few of them during the day, doing 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and so forth. When you start your practice, if you start your practice with first off sitting for 1 hour meditation, 1.5 hour meditation, you might get to the point where if you just see your meditation cushion, just by seeing it, you feel nauseous, you feel disinclined to do the practice. It gives you like this really unbearable sensation. It happened actually, when I did my first Buddhist course, Buddhist retreat, with Venerable Thupte Chodron from Shravasti Abbey, back in the 90s. We had an experienced Dharma practitioner that was leading the meditation sessions in the morning. So we would start the morning at, I don't know, 6 a.m. or I think it was 6 a.m. or 6:30 in the morning with 1 hour of meditation. It was way too much for me. It was a torture. Not only was it torture, it was like, kind of, I could feel this anxiety, but also aggression building up in me. It's like I just can't deal with an hour-long meditation. And so it's a good advice that Shantideva gave. Not Shantideva, sorry, that is given in general for the practice of shamatha, but we can also take it to then other practices. We need to know when to take a break. We need to know how to pace ourselves. If we overdo it, we develop bad reactions, which are counterproductive for us. And so the first part of suspension or relinquishment is temporary relinquishment. We take a break. And when we take a break, we think that I'm going to rest. And once I'm rested, I'm going to pick it up again. But the rest is not for kind of setting it aside and coming back to it when I feel like. When we start a break, we think that I need to take a break. I need to rest physically. I need to rest mentally, but I will get back to it. That's part of joy. No, we need to look at it as part of joyous effort, in which we become enthused about virtue, enthused about doing the right thing. I should take it up again after I'm rested. And of course, this is definitely the case when we feel run down physically, when we're ill. When we're sick, it's not good to push ourselves. I spoke about doing prostrations. There were days in which I had muscle aches, cramps, and so forth. I just couldn't do it. It's good to slow down. It's okay to slow down because pushing might mean that I harm myself physically, damage myself. Not good for long run. I have a friend that is a perfectionist. Not going to name her. I don't think that she'll ever listen to one of those sessions, but still, I'm not going to name her. But anyway, she's a perfectionist, but also she pushes and pushes and pushes and adds more to her practice and more to her practice and more to her practice. And I remember that 10 years ago, she went into a retreat, and halfway the retreat, she became so ill because she was just pushing too hard. You're pushing herself not to the limit, but over the limit. And so she had to discontinue the retreat. She had to stop the retreat to discontinue. And for a long time, not only she had kind of still lingering physical effects of just kind of being completely exhausted, but also a mental state was completely run down, being disinclined to do it for a long time. And so we don't want to kind of end up in that compromised position. So knowing when to take a break is good. That's temporary suspension or relinquishment. And then the next one, if I put the verse again on the screen, it says, if something is finished well, I should put it aside with a wish for more and more later. So if we have taken up a practice or a task and we've completed it successfully, we don't just kind of leave it aside and rest. No, it was completed. We don't just rest and do nothing. Then we go on to the next step, next level, begin another practice, and then bring it to completion. So this is not a temporary relinquishment, but this is, you can say, final relinquishment in which the task is over. Then we'll move on to the next one. So how are we doing? Good. So I think that I spoke about the four powers. So we've covered the power of conviction, the power of interest. Again, thinking of karma, cause, and effect. Thinking that a practice will bring us positive results in samsara, but even more than that, it will bring us out of samsara. It will take us out of samsara and into the state of enlightenment. And therefore, We become resolute that this is what we want to do. The power of stability, in which we think that I myself will do it, reach enlightenment, benefit others, and I will do it by myself alone. I have the ability to do it. We become self-confident, and I will rise above my afflictions. I will be victorious over the afflictions. I will not let them bring me down. And I should do it with a great sense of joy because it will give me happiness. It will give me happiness in samsara. It will give me happiness, long-term happiness, lasting happiness in liberation and enlightenment. And from time to time, when I need, I will take a break. So when we do that, um, we basically develop joyous effort. The essence of joyous effort, the nature of joyous effort is completely delighting in virtue, being enthused about virtue. If we do develop these four powers, the result would be delighting in virtue, being enthused about it. And I mentioned in the previous session the three types of joyous effort. There is one that is called armor-like joyous effort, in which when we start a certain task, we correct a strong motivation in thinking that I shall do it, even if it takes eons over eons to do it. I will not back down. I will not leave it half done, even if I have to do it by myself, even if it would be complicated, even if it will require lots of effort and challenges and so forth, and even if I have to do it in samsara, I shall do it. I shall continue to do it until I bring it to its end. So that's armor-like joyous effort. And then we have joyous effort in working for the sake of others, practicing the six perfections. Sorry, should have said joyous effort in gathering virtuous actions, virtuous dharmas. Whatever positive thing we do within the framework of the six perfections, we are joyous about it. We delight in it. And then I wanted to end with putting out a few points from joyous effort in working for the sake of sentient beings. And so um, there are said to be 11 ways in which we can work for the sake of sentient beings, and we develop joy. We delight in those ways of working for the sake of others. So, for example, causing others to uphold the Dharma, encouraging others to embrace and practice the Dharma. Of course, we do it in reason, in the sense that we don't. Our goal is not to convert others to become Buddhist. It's more of people that develop some interest or inclination to the Buddhist tradition, in which people that find it appealing, we can encourage them to do that. We cause others to increase their virtuous qualities. We help them to cultivate ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. Are they giving them advice or helping them with finding the right environment or right conducive conditions? We cause others to work for the benefit of sentient beings. We inspire them to engage in compassionate activities, and we inspire them by ourselves doing it. Eliminating suffering is another way of working for the sake of sentient beings, actively working to alleviate the pain and difficulties of others, becoming enthused about it, becoming enthused about removing obscurations, helping others overcome afflictive emotions and cognitive obscurations. Then providing necessary conditions, offering material support, teachings, and guidance to facilitate others' progress, right? So becoming enthused about it. Establishing others in the Mahayana path, teaching the profound Dharma, because this is if we can do it, if we have enough knowledge to share with others. Then leading beings through skillful means, using wisdom and adaptability to guide others effectively. Acting in accord with others' mental capacities, teaching them according to their level, And finally, engaging in activities oneself to inspire others, being an example through one's own practice and actions. So, really feeling proud of oneself in the sense that you feel happy and satisfied that you're able to embody the Dharma. Not only that you're able to embody the Dharma, um, if we practice in the right way, in a compassionate way, with skillful means, and also with a sense of humility, it makes the minds of our teachers happy. His Holiness the Dalai Lama will be happy with us. Dr. Rinpoche will be happy with us. Whoever might be your teacher, if you approach your practice with a sense of sincerity and compassion, this is what makes them happy. And so through that, we also then come to embody the teachings. We set examples for others. So those are the things that I wanted to speak of in relation to joyous effort and the four powers. Um, Larry says, it seems to me that most of the advice you give is intended for monastic practices. Can we lay practitioners apply your advice with a busy and unpredictable lifestyle? Yeah, definitely. I'm first of all, it's a spot on comment. It's sometimes easy for me to fall into speaking of those things from my perspective as a monk, but of course, not everyone is a monk or a nun. And so I think that, lay practitioners, people that have to go every day to work, have families, have other things that you attend to. Um, if you keep in mind that you want to live an ethical life and you're trying your best to live an ethical life, and within those ethical life, which means first of all, as much as you can abstaining from negative actions, of the 10 on virtues, as much as you can cultivate the 10 virtues. And when I say as much as we cannot do it in a perfect way, but we try our best to do it. So we become satisfied with whatever we can do with kind of ethical discipline. Um, and also, there is the practice of the six perfections. And so, practicing, for example, material generosity, helping someone at need, who is in need, the impoverished, or giving an advice to someone that is anxious, opening a heart, giving someone some of our time, just listening to what they say with a sense of joy. It's also practice of joyous effort and the six perfections, practice of generosity. When we are able to, for example, practice patience, and the nature of the practice of patience is making sure that the mind does not become disturbed or agitated when we face harm coming from the outside, harm coming from the inside. So we try our best and we fail, but we try again and we do better in some days and we might do worse in other days. But still, we think that this is what I chose and I'm doing it with a sense of joy. And so I think that um, if we still think on a kind of every day, that every day is part of our practice. Practice is not limited to just sitting in meditation, but it's also what we do in between sessions when we give us a big perspective, when we think that I still rely upon the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha as my guiding light. We can incorporate that in our daily life, and I think that we can then feel happy, that enjoy and enthused that we're doing it. I feel that I'm rambling, that I'm not being kind of really clear about it, but that's what comes up in my mind now. Um, so what do you reckon, Larry? Does it make sense? All right. And so I think that maybe it's time to leave it here for now. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And so it's time to leave it here for now, and we will thank you. And we will dedicate the merit that we have accumulated today and also the merit that we have accumulated in previous sessions, not only in our meetings, but also in other meetings hosted by Dr. Nobeling and also other centers, other teachers, and so forth. Of course, thanking all the people that are involved with Dr. Nobeling that make it possible for us to share those teachings. Thank you very much, Tundrup, and all the other people in the team, seen and unseen. And we shall dedicate a virtue, first of all, for our ability to develop joyous effort, to become enthused in our practice, which is directed towards enlightenment for the sake of other living beings. And in order to do so, we need to make sure that we keep bodhicitta running in our mind. So we have a thing developed in some context, some portions of bodhicitta. We want to continue to do that, not to let it fall apart, continue to do that and take it from strength to strength. We want to we want to have our teachers with us for a long time to come. May they face no obstacles, no life-threatening situations, no sickness. May they have perfect cause and conditions coming together so that they continue to inspire us and also to inspire others. And so let's recite a few verses of dedication. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that is not risen is rise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha, and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. And here we're saying long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but we can also think of all of our other teachers and include them within this prayer. After all, His Holiness and all of our teachers and also the Buddha, all of them are one in nature. But the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. The ever of the knowledge teachings and transmigrated beings, who makes extremely clear the path to this unification of emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And finally, if we think of wanting Lama Zopa Rinpoche to come back to us quickly, we can think, you uphold the Sibiru's moral way, who says in the bountiful Birthfall, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majina's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, several of my Setvanadis, your disciples, please come back to us quickly. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for coming and giving me the opportunity to think of joyous effort, to think of the four powers. So I hope that it was useful to you, but it was certainly useful for me. So thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Venerable.
Thank you
Venerable.
very much.